Hello, Alamal. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Mona Cottage Books. I am Selby, and it is now March. And do you know what March is? March is middle grade March here. Middle grade being stories for about ages 7 and 8 till about 13 and 14. That's what we call middle grade. So yes, Harry Potter falls within middle grade. Percy Jackson, the beginning ones, those also fall into middle grade, but there's also the classics like Charlotte's Web and stuff like that. But right now, today, I'm going to be talking about middle grade fantasy. I'm going to list my top 10 favorite middle grade fantasy books / series for you. So let's get started. All right, so my first one, these aren't in any particular order. These are just kind of in the order that I thought them up. So maybe my favorite, you could say that, but not necessarily. The first, it's actually a whole series that I absolutely super love. I've done a separate video on these, but it is the Luck Uglies. Book number 1 by Paul Durham is the Luck Uglies. Now, this isn't like a high fantasy. There's no dragons, but there are bognoblins, which are kind of like these bog trolls that will definitely eat you. Our main character is Rye O'Chanter. It kind of has a little bit of Irish vibe going on in there. But Rye is a young girl who lives in the village of Drowning. Yes. Sounds like a lovely place. So she lives in Drowning, and for a long time things have been fine. The bognoblins have been vanquished, I suppose, but they've come back, and the only people that can help defend the town from the bognoblins are actually the Luck Uglies. Now, the Luck Uglies are good, but they're also bad. They're kind of these morally gray robbery characters, but they're also helpful because they can fight off the bognoblins. So yeah, there's a lot going on in these books. The first one is all set in Drowning. The other ones are set in some other different places like Pest. Sounds like just a lovely place. But it's actually, they're really, really fun. So that's the first one in my top 10 series, and that is the Luck Uglies. Book number 2, actually series number 2, again, these are series that I really like, is Anya and the Dragon. So Anya is a young lady, and she lives on the edge or outside of a village. She's a little bit of an outsider of the village because her family is Jewish. And it's a make-believe world, so it's not set anywhere in particular, but Anya meets a dragon. But instead of it being like an old adult dragon, it's this kind of silly young dragon, and he gets into some trouble, and they go on adventures. Yeah, it's a sweet, interesting book, and you get a little bit of kind of Jewish mythology in there. Like they have a gnome type guy who lives in their house, and he's magical, but he's kind of grumpy too, so that's funny. And then Anya has another friend, or makes another friend, and I forget what his name is, but he's interested in both boys and girls, so there's some exploration of that. Not a whole lot, but it's just, there's a wide variety of things going on in this book, as well as there being this dragon. And then the next book, I think, is Anya and the Nightingale, so they actually leave the village and go on this adventure. Yeah, well written and interesting, and I think that more might be coming out, and so I would look forward to those. I don't think I can link it, but if you can find it on my channel. I have also done a long talk about The House at the Edge of Magic, and this is one of my newest, most favoritist ones. There's The House at the Edge of Magic, The Tower at the Edge of Time, and The Bookshop at the Back of Beyond, and these are just fabulous. So funny. So the main character, actually, let's find her name. So 9 is this young girl. She was like a pickpocket on the street. She didn't have any family. And she one day picks the pocket of this very posh looking lady and finds this little house, this little house charm. And for some reason she like sets it down and like knocks on the door, and it becomes a whole house. And trapped inside of this house for the last 2 years are Flabbergast, the wizard, and a troll who's nice and makes crunchy pancakes, which is terrible. Also a spoon, a mad scientist spoon that wears a kilt, and a toilet that like hops around the house and giggles. There's a lot of weird stuff going on in this book. This is, if you just like crazy, wacky things, if you like silly humor, like every time they open the tea cupboard, the world kind of flashes and they turn into something random, and then eventually they go back to normal. So it's just lots of silly things happen. The house can actually travel through time and space. And yeah, so there's just a lot going on. It's a super fun, like found family and trying to understand where you come from, but also just a bunch of wackiness. And all of the books have just been super, super fun. I hope that there are more. If you like silly, crazy things happening and you like interesting, fun characters, then The House at the Edge of Magic is a superb fantasy series. Next up, we have another series. This is a Darkening of Dragons. Well, okay, so the series is a Songs of Magic. That's the series. But the first one is a Darkening of Dragons. I've actually talked about these before because I love these. So a Darkening of Dragons, a Vanishing of Griffins, and then a Thunder of Monsters. Something like that. Yes. So by S.A. Patrick. Phenomenal. Absolutely love these. It's got everything. This is high fantasy. You've got dragons, you've got griffins, you've got dragogryphs, you've got magic flute playing, you've got an evil bad guy they've got to fight. There's magical creatures. There's magical hedgehogs. I mean, it's got everything. Super adventurous, well thought out, creative. I was just blown away every time I read one of the books. These are super, super fun. The characters Patch, Ren, and Bava are just phenomenal. I really hope that more come from this world, these characters, because they are so endearing and wonderful. And this is just, if you like high adventure, high fantasy, then this is definitely for you. A Darkening of Dragons. The series is a Songs of Magic. Next up is the Twistrose Key. Now this is, I would give it has like Narnia vibes. Basically this young girl, she finds a key, or she's delivered a key to get into a kingdom where animals, it's like always winter and animals can talk, and she's got to help find this prince, and it's just really sweet. So there's the Twistrose Key, and then the second one in the series is Thorn Ghost. Now I remember Thorn Ghost, I can remember the ending, and I can remember just being like, oh, so sweet and heart-wrenching. I can't really remember exactly what happened in these stories, but I just remember really enjoying them, that they were well written, that if you like fantasy, you like animals, you like adventure, then all of these things will be in there. The Twistrose Key by a Scandinavian author, they're just fabulous. Next up is a bit of a low-key magic. So I actually, if I'm thinking back, I don't think there's actually any technical magic within this book. It's called The Midnighters, but it feels like there's magic. So it's about this mysterious guild, and I believe they're in Prague or something like that, a while ago. It's historical, it's all made up. But so there's this Midnighters Guild, and they try to top each other by making these fantastical things happen, but they have to use science, but they don't explain the science, so it kind of feels it's magical. It's so interesting. It's a very yeah, there's like vibes and stuff, but so it's not high magic, it's not high fantasy, but it's definitely got a great interesting vibe. If you want something that is kind of almost a little spooky, then I really like this one. So next up, I have a Glasshouse of Stars. A Glasshouse of Stars. This one's a little bit different. This is more imagination fantasy. It's also different because it's written in the second person. You do this, you do that, which is kind of odd, and at first is a little bit strange, but once you get over it, it's actually really well written, and it's like So it's this young girl and she moves to a new place. And I'm thinking, it doesn't say specifically, but I'm thinking she's moving from someplace like Vietnam, someplace in Southeast Asia, and she's moving to Australia, I believe. It's, again, not said specifically. But she moves into her uncle's house and she just imagines it as being able to expand and that it has a life of its own. And then the backyard is this magical greenhouse where she can plant seeds and things grow really big and fast. And it's a way for her to make friends. And it's a really interesting book. It's more about her struggles as being in a different culture and having to learn the language and everything like that, but it's also this fantastical imagination thing. So it's a beautiful book, and I definitely recommend it. A Glasshouse of Stars. If you're feeling like you need some swashbuckling and some mermaids, then we have The Mermaid, the Witch, and the Sea. This is an interesting book. Yeah, it's set on kind of a pirate ship, and there's mermaids, and I'm really not sure how to describe it, but it's very atmospheric, it's adventurous, it's not super high fantasy, there is a mermaid involved, but it's also just about interpersonal relationships and finding your place in the world and following your dreams, but it does have magical elements. So if that sounds good to you, check out The Witch, The Mermaid, and the Sea. Wait, what was it? The Mermaid, the Witch, and the Sea. All right, my second to last book is A Language of Ghosts, or The Language of Ghosts? The Language of Ghosts. Now, so this is an interesting one. It's about these three siblings, and the main character, Noah, is an ex-princess. So her family used to have a kingdom, and then they got banished to live on this island, this floating island, and it's protected, or protected basically by a sea monster that loves cake. So there's a lot of these quirky little things about it. So Noah is trying to get her lands back because she's the princess. But there's kind of an interesting way she goes about it. She goes into the world of the dead, and there are some sassy otters in there that kind of help her out. It's a really interesting book. It's a very interesting premise. There's just a lot happening, and I really don't know how to describe it other than like it's really well written. It's one of those books that it's a little slow to begin with, but then by the midway through, you're just like, I love everything about this, and it's super awesome. So The Language of Ghosts by Heather Fawcett, I definitely recommend. My 10th and final book of my 10 fantasy middle grade books that I love is The House with Chicken Legs. This is a really fun one, and kind of a really sad one too. Okay, so basically, if you've ever heard of Baba Yaga, she's kind of portrayed as this witch in like Slavic and Eastern European tradition. But in this book, Baba Yaga is actually a helper who guides the dead into the land of the dead. So every night she throws a feast party for the people that have died in that area, and they come to her house, which happens to have chicken legs and can get up and walk around, and it occasionally does. It just gets up and wanders off, or runs if it feels like it. And Baba Yaga has a young daughter who is being apprenticed to be a Yaga, to be like a soul guider. Yeah, that's the word. The guides are of souls, but she doesn't want to be, and so there's kind of this back and forth, and it's very interesting. It's a new take on the Baba Yaga and what she's out there doing. Yeah, in the end, it's a really sweet book, but it's got some really great and interesting things that happen throughout it. So I definitely recommend that one as well. So those are my top 10 fantasy books / fantasy series, because some of them come in series. I hope that you have found something that will pique your interest and that you want to go read. And let me know what your favorite fantasy books are. I know I didn't pick like Harry Potter and Percy Jackson. I was trying to find some other things that might be of interest, but let me know what you really enjoy and what you think that I should read. And thanks for watching. Like and subscribe if you want more content like this.